listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so good to know that you're out there listening again today and that we have another exciting program for you. A few years ago, I decided that after I was going through my transition, I was so excited about learning my values, what I believed in. And let me tell you, I was 50 years old when I found out this great news. Now, we all have an inkling of the values that we offer, which we get from our birth families and from our growing up years. But somehow we devalue the value of those values by comments from family members, friends, other people that see them as deterrents instead of really jewels in our caps. So anyway, when I discovered my top 5 values, I was in my 50s, guys, and I was like, oh, really? Something that I had thought was really not a flattering part of my personality actually turned into a jewel of my personality. Well, I was so excited about learning that the value of beauty, which I used in my home, were really an asset to me, that I love to live around beautiful things. Now, they're beautiful to me, but they may not be beautiful to another person that walks into my home. But knowing that gave me such freedom in loving who I was. Now, I was so excited about it, I wrote a book called Joyce Buford Empowers, and it's written by Joyce Buford Empowers, but it's called Effortless Happiness. And it's available on my website. I'd like for you to go there and think about participating in learning your values. It's life-changing. And for me, it made all the difference in the world. So my book is there. Or if you'd like to join a course whenever I hold my course again, which is a 2-day, 2-hour, it's a very simple, quick, but we work together in finding your values so you can incorporate them into your life. So anyway, go to Joyce Buford Empowers, leave a message, sign up for my opt-in, and think about ordering the book. It will change your life. In this day and time, I want to just briefly mention something. You know, we're getting very close to the elections. And I find the election is also very heated over. We're definitely for this person, not for the other person. And it's a very interesting time to look at what's happening in our communities and with us. As I found in myself, I take a more judgmental approach to somebody's actions with this election. And it's really a strong time for us to keep this in mind. We must step back from old inner beliefs, from old thinking that makes us want to strike out or say something or be anything but kind. And we must remember, although we have not seen it, and we've seen so many changes, the pandemic has totally thrown us into a different mindset. We've seen so many people go through so many hardships that we must be above. We must get to the point where we can self-center ourselves, to step back, do not respond, to actually go inside ourselves to balance, to keep us balanced. Because we can't add fire to a fiery situation. It's very important for you and for me. as we are all interconnected. So I give this as an encouragement because I noticed it even in me. And I teach this stuff, that we could be triggered. And I really want for you that you not get into that triggering situation and that you're able to pull back. And if that means go out and take a walk, or if that means stand on the ground outside, read a book, say a prayer, whatever it is you go into to find that silent place, that place you need to center yourself, I really encourage you to go there today, or anytime you feel agitated, frustrated, angry. This is the time to use inner control. So I wanted to share that with you before I move on into talking with our guest today. And I am thrilled that she is on my show. Michelle Quay. Quay. How'd I do, Michelle? Michelle Quay is a certified confidence and leadership coach who helps negative self-talkers to believe in their talents to reach full potential in a fulfilling personal and professional life. Now, she is a speaker, much in demand, as well as she is an author, and she wrote her memoirs, Perfectly Normal, about an immigrant story of making it in America. She is a board member of the United Nations Association of the USA and a clinical pharmacist at USC's Keck Medical Center. Michelle was born in Taiwan and grew up in New York. I think that's New York City. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
But today she lives in L.A., in Los Angeles, with a short-haired brown tabby cat named Buster. And she loves to work out. You will always find her at the gym. And so anyway, welcome, Michelle. I so appreciate you come today.
Thank you so much, Joyce. You did a great job pronouncing my last name. It was very close. It was Quay.
Oh, well, my listener knows out there that I can mess up the simplest of names. But anyway, thank you very much for that, those words of encouragement.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah. Do you find yourself kind of falling in some of that triggering stuff that I just spoke about? I was like, get out of this, girl. I mean, I was just surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, your opening kind of really summarized it really well in terms of values, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of us have those buttons that get pushed from time to time, including myself. And when my button get pushed, typically it's a violation to the values that I hold in my life. So depending on what type of values that we have, whether it's honesty, trust, or just respect, once those values become violated, it makes perfect sense why we would get agitated and irritable or being triggered. And that's how we navigate through our life, getting our button pushed all the time. One thing I learned, and I'm sure you have too, is if people can only push a button if you give them the button to push. If you don't have any button for them to push, they can't really push your button anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So are you saying we get rid of those buttons?
I believe we recognize and we start learning and use them to our advantage. So if honesty or respect is one of your button that it get violated sometimes, I believe it's a point of curiosity, to become curious about why that button keep getting pushed. Is it the way that you're communicating with another person? Is it your relationship with another person that feels not respected for you, and what is it that you can do from that point on to work on that respect and to maintain and set up the boundary in terms of how you protect your values.
Yes. Yeah. Good words there. Because there's a lot of people right now that I think are dealing with triggering, and it's a process. Everything's a process. Takes us a while, doesn't it, to get rid of some of those things. Now, I always like to have my guests share their transitioning moments, or those moments of life change. You know, we have so many of them. Some of them are smaller, some of them are huge, that they just take us in a different direction. So I know that you shared with me, and I'm sure it's in your wonderful book that sounds like it would be a really good read, for us to be aware of some of those really major confrontations that you have as an immigrant coming to the United States. But you also physically experienced a major change in your life. So would you like to share with us that story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe, right now that this pandemic has triggered a lot of that transition that we are going through in our life, that period of transformation, that period of going from what we used to feel very comfortable and that we used to now to something that's very different, different lifestyle, different way of living, different way of believing things. And there's major points, and there's up, and there's always down. So mine was coming to this country, having to learn how to speak English was one portion of that big transformational journey.
Oh, yeah.
Not being able, the fact that I'm sitting here and conversing with you in English, this is like my biggest accomplishment in my life as a foreigner who didn't speak English at all. I was always, when I first got to this country, I didn't speak any English at all, and it was very simple. How do I order a meal? How do I go to a McDonald's, order my hamburger? That was a struggle for me. There are so many times I go to the restaurant and I didn't know what to order because I don't know how to speak it.
Yes.
And sometimes I just kind of let that go and let that accomplishment be hidden somewhere in my life, and not recognizing that was a big part. Not everyone can do this.
Right.
Not everyone can do this.
How old were you when you came to the United States?
I was 15 years old when I came to this country.
Okay.
My grandparents, they live here. So when we got the permission to enter U.S. legally, my whole family moved. My parents, my two other siblings, we all moved to this country. Prior to that, I was born in Taiwan. I grew up in Taiwan. And one of the major transition or transformation that I was dealing with, and it took me a very long period of time to come to where I am today. It was a lifelong process. It was not something that I wake up in the morning and then suddenly, I claim that victory. I claim that freedom. It was every single day. It felt like I was living in a pandemic, and that pandemic has to do with my own belief that was keeping me small, keeping me invisible. And that pandemic came from a car accident when I was 11 years old. The accident took place one day after school. I was crossing the street, but I didn't know that there was a taxi that was coming from afar. And by the time I got to the middle of the street, it was already too late. It was not any special. It's not one of those days that is, it's beautiful and bright. You didn't get any sign of that it was going to happen. It was a very typical, ordinary day, and we take things for granted all the time. We put on our shoes and we go out there. We believe that today is just going to be one of those days. But it wasn't just one of those days. It was the day that completely changed my life, there and moving forward. And that accident causes a permanent damage later on, that lead to a permanent damage later on. And now I am physically disabled, and I can't walk without assistance. So I've always walked with crutches. Before 2016, I was using 2 crutches because my back was really putting on a lot of pressure. My legs started to deform, And when you look at me, there's nothing about beauty. I think you brought up the word beauty. We all appreciate beauty, right? Every one of us. We like to see beautiful things. We like to have that beauty in our life. But the way that we define beauty a lot of time is really based on how the society defines it.
Yes.
What is beautiful? What are some of the qualities that are beautiful? You know, for women, you need to look in certain way. You need to carry yourself in certain way. You need to have wisdom. You need to be multitasking. You need to, look elegant in certain ways, and the way that you speak, and it needs to be a certain way, right? So there's always that picture of what beauty looks like. And when I look myself in the mirror for the longest time, I'm 46 now. So when I had that transformational moment, I was 40. I was in my 40, and I looked into the mirror. I saw nothing about beauty. It was all about, how dare you to think that you are like them? How dare you to believe that you can dress up in bikini and just lay out by the pool and have a drink and feel and look beautiful? How dare you to think that way? Yeah. There was a lot of shaming and guilt. And really the biggest thing I was struggling was just trying to fit in, to be part of something. I wanted to belong in this world. And many times, I didn't belong. I didn't feel like I belonged in this world. I kind of describe myself, coming from outer space. It must be something, I must be something coming out from outer space. And here I am, I'm trapped in this body. And this is not the body I wanted. There are times where I wake up at night and I wanted to be someone else. I wanted to be, maybe I can go into another body. Maybe why can't I just have it all and have this wisdom? Because I went to school all the way, so I have a doctor's degree in pharmacy. I mean, if you look at all the things that I can have in my life, I have a job, a very stable job. I have great retirement plan. I have all these things that people want to have in terms of stability. I have a roof over my head. I have family. I have friends who care about me. But when I look really deep down inside, there's that big hole, empty hole inside of me that just doesn't get filled up. And I kept asking why. Why am I trapped in this body? Why am I being here? Like, what is my purpose?
Yeah. So what you thought was normal was not what you believed you were living.
Nope.
Right? Yeah.
It was a normal redefined. I had to go through a redefining what beauty means, what normal means, what does being perfect means. I was trying so hard to be perfect. I worked so hard to be perfect. I want my perfect score in school. I want to be the perfect daughter. I want to be the perfect colleague that anyone can just come to and feel the teamwork that people are enjoying. I try to be perfect, and perfect means normal. That's normal to me.
Right.
But the fact is, there's nothing perfect, and imperfection is perfect.
Yes.
And I am imperfect. But I didn't see that.
Right. So how did you arrive at the acceptance of you are perfect in an imperfect world?
It was everything that I thought was true started to crumble around me. So at that time, during that transformation period, I was applying for a new position to be a manager in the pharmacy where I work at, and that didn't follow through. They picked someone else. They picked one of my friends rather than picking me, and I took that as there's something wrong with me.
Oh, definitely. I took it that very.
Yep. Yeah. I took it very personal. It was something about me that they didn't like. Must be the way that I look. I'm too short, and they don't want someone who doesn't look really, up to par. So they didn't hire me as a manager, although I've been working there for the last 10, 15 years. So that was one thing that crumbled in my life. And another part of it was all my relationships. I was at that age where I was looking to meet that special person. And I kept looking for that person. I want that person to be able to interact with me intellectually. I want that person to, have that intimacy. But for whatever reason, every time I go out on a date, no matter how well I put up the show, it's always about, oh, Michelle, you're so nice. You're great. You're a smart woman. But let's just be friends. So I always been friend zone in every single date that I went to. And after a couple of times you fail, you believe that this is you. It has everything to do with you, and you are what the problem is. And so I start to internalize it as I am not beautiful, and that's why they don't want me. So there's a lot of just self-judgment and criticism. And when things start to crumble, you start to think about, what is it about me that I can hold on to? There's nothing around me that I can hold on to except myself. So what is it about myself? What can I do? Why am I here? So I started doing a lot of self-discovery. And during that process, I've learned that my biggest struggle was this physical challenge. I always wake up not feeling great. I feel miserable in the morning. I feel a lot of pain on my back. I was gaining weight. I was not eating healthy. I was not being very happy. So the easiest thing, I believe, to tackle is actually the physical well-being. It's something that you can do right now to change the environment or the physical that you live in. That's something that you can do, that you have control over. Yes. And surprisingly, when you start changing your environment, when you start changing your physical experience in this world, it starts to internalize and start working inwards. So a lot of people say, well, how do I deal with this emotion or mental experience that I'm having? It's not pleasant. It's not good. I don't feel good. Get into your body. Start moving around. Do something that you can do. Find things that you can do. And one thing that I could do was just get into the physical. So that day I went out to Target. I went and bought one of those balancing ball. I brought the ball. I brought the ball home. It was huge. And I was just sitting on it. I was rocking back and forth. I'm like, I can't run. I can't jump. So let me just sit on it and let me just think about this.
Right.
So I sat on it for quite some time. That whole week, I was just taking some time to sit on it and just doing my thinking. And then I thought, well, maybe I can try and work with a professional, because if I don't know how to operate a machine, a gym equipment, maybe I can have someone to show me how to do it. So I went to the gym and I asked to sign up to work with a personal trainer. And from there, it basically I just went on a mile. I start running. So I'm the type of person, once I start doing something, I would start just picking it up and just go. And I didn't just go, I ran. I ran with the idea.
Are you okay? You're not physically saying you started running, right?
No, not quite. Not quite.
I'm like, okay, I'm trying to see that crutch that you use.
Not quite. I had to learn how to walk first. So I've been walking. So ever since then, like 4 years ago, I had to use 2 crutches. Now I'm just using one. And I've been doing a lot of walking on the treadmill. And of course, I decided to take it to the next level. I wanted to prove to myself that I am capable of doing things only if my mind set to it. So after I worked with the personal trainer, I told him one day, I said, listen, I know this is great and I'm feeling really happy about this, where I'm at, but I wanted to take it up to the next notch. I want to take up a notch. He said, okay, great. So what are we going to do? I said, we're going to go hike. And he said, okay, great. Let's go hike. Where do you want to hike? Like here, because we have a little mountain here that's about 10 miles. Do you want to go hike here? I said, no, I'm going to go to Machu Picchu. And
well, let's take a big one, shall we?
Yeah. If you're going to do something, do something big. Make it big or make it go home.
Yeah, but you had to prepare. So did you prepare on that little one in LA?
Yeah, I did. So I started with the little one. Gradually, I built on it. So every weekend, during that whole year, I would go and hike. The first time I went hike, I went by myself, and I didn't tell anybody because I want to surprise everybody. And little did I know that that's not a smart thing to do.
That wasn't a good thing.
No. On my way back, I was thinking, whoa, I look over the cliff. Yeah, what was I thinking? Well, what was I not thinking? You know, I look over the cliff and I'm thinking, if I fall right now, no one would know about it. And
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what's so interesting to me is that as you were telling, you know, you have the body that's not ideal. Okay. It's not as you would like it. You would like to be perfect, but there is almost every woman that confronts that she's not enough in some way. I mean, yours was very physical but everybody has, I'm not enough. I'm not enough in certain ways. And so you know, the analogy that I'm making, I mean, we're all just dealing with the same stuff. Yours was a little more reminder. I mean, because it was your physical body that you could see every day. And although we may feel we're not enough, but it may not be physically that we see that. But then there are those women that are really extremely fat and they have to look at it every day. So it's so interesting how the stories are so similar and yet they're not because of specifics. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's the same. We're all dealing with the same thing. Mine is more apparent. And for others, you know, it's perfect outside, but you know, what they're going through inside, we never know. We never know what the other person's story is.
Yeah. So, well, I want to hear about the journey, but I also want us to talk about the fear because, you know, you and I have shared a little bit about the experience of the Machu Picchu, which was a life-changing experience for me as well. But we're going to take a short break. We have just a few minutes, but you know, there was a lot of fear in having to change and always be perfect. I mean, where you weren't perfect in your body because of the accident, you always wanted to be perfect in other parts of your life. And I think that's so typical. I mean, so typical. I get it. You know, but, so when we come back, we're going to visit more with Michelle, and she's going to talk to us about the fear that she might have needed to handle when facing people and experiencing the great adjustment and mindset changes that she dealt with in facing her transition. So, Michelle, when we come back, that's what we're going to talk about. Does that sound like a good deal?
Sounds like great. Yeah. I'm excited. Can't wait to share.
So we're going to come back, and then we want to talk about this unbelievable place that we both have experienced called Machu Picchu. So come back and listen.
Transformational coach, motivational speaker, and author Joyce Buford returns after this short break. Close your eyes and imagine living your life without limits. Where would you go? Who would you meet? What would you do? During an Uncover Your Hidden Genius session, you will discover what's keeping you from living your life with purpose, passion, and fulfillment of your potential. You'll get a clear vision of the steps you need to take to uncover your hidden genius so that you can live a life without limits. Sessions can be done over the phone, Skype, or in person. Find out more at www.joycebufordempowers.com or by calling 903-287-0747.
Did you know April is National Frog Month? Hey, I wouldn't make this up. Growing up in the country, my brother always had a frog or two in his pockets and liked nothing more than to toss one at me. What's the word for the fear of frogs? Batrachophobia. In Germany, frogs were once kept around the house as pets because they croaked loudly whenever the barometric pressure fell, signaling bad weather was coming. There are more than 4,700 species of frogs. Scientists who study frogs are called herpetologists. The name comes from the Greek word herpeton, which means something that crawls. Why are frogs so happy? Because they eat whatever bugs them.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Welcome back to this segment of Second Wind. Joyce Buford, the author of Effortless Happiness, continues in this segment to share insights that will help you live a life of greater purpose and filled with happiness. Now here's our host, author and coach, Joyce Buford.
We are talking today with Michelle Quay, and she is telling us about her transition, her move from Taiwan to the U.S., and also a horrible accident that happened to her when she was 11 years old and how it changed her life, totally being hit by a car. So one thing that I'm very interested in, I bet it's a really good read, is your book, because I know it would have to talk about the several things about your transition into the U.S., into America, coming, as you alluded to, with the language barrier, but also just what it was like. So why did you feel like you needed to write this book?
Mm-hmm. I never thought about writing a book. I could never possibly think about writing an English book in English.
Yeah.
That was something that I couldn't have dreamed about ever. And when I remember when I came back from Machu Picchu, I was trying to figure out, okay, so now that I have overcome this physical challenge, what is it that I can do to serve? And I came home, I had that idea of there must be a reason for me to go through this journey, go through this life experience, and how do I bring it back so that I can serve others so that I serve my purpose. And I started to believe that the reason why I am here is that I am here to serve a greater purpose. And, some people call God, some people call him Buddha, some people call him the universe. However that you believe that higher power is, I believe that there's a higher power within all of us and above, beyond us, that gave us the reason why we are here. So the reason why I wrote that book was because there was a calling. It was a need that I need to share this story with everyone who come into contact with me. And maybe whatever that story will tell them and inspire them to do maybe just one thing, because we are all the same, as you had mentioned earlier. We're all the same, no matter physically different, emotionally or mentally different. There's something that we all go through in our life that share the similarity in every story. And everyone who's listening right now, there's a story inside of you. And if there's anything that you pick out from this podcast, from the conversation here today, it's because we share that same experience. Your story is very different than mine, but there's one elemental common ground that we all share. So my purpose of how I serve is by sharing my story. And if there's anything that I have learned that I can share with the audience, that I can share with anybody who I have conversation with, then I serve my purpose. So I came home with the idea of serving. And that was the reason why I wanted to write a book. Because how else am I going to share that story? It's by telling. It's by written words. When words are written down, they have the power of inspiring someone who likes to read. Same thing on a podcast. The reason why I'm here is because I want to share that story with the audience so that maybe something that I have learned in my life, they will find it useful for themselves in their life.
Right.
So that was the reason.
Yeah. Now, I'm not surprised, and I am going to jump to this. You and I both share the magical experience of being on Machu Picchu, which is in Peru. It's some ancient ruins of Peruvian, I don't know, do you know the tribe's name? I don't remember the tribe's name, but there was a community of Peruvians that lived on top of this mountain called Machu Picchu. And as I explained it to everybody that I visit with, it is the closest I have ever thought I could reach out and touch God. It was so special. So it's just pristine, and the clouds roll across. And Michelle, did you have much of the same feeling that I did?
Absolutely. And it was just, once you get onto the Machu Picchu site, the ruined site, the official site, you look around you, and it's really hard to believe that at some point in our century, in our humanity, there's actually a tribe who used to live here. And as I was looking around and just admiring the structure, the ancient stone of how they got here. Yeah. It was just beyond imagination. Like, how can anybody in their force, in their power, lift up those stones and carry them up to the mountain so high? And the altitude, I believe, at Machu Picchu, it was still at 8,000 feet. Mm-hmm. So now, that's still very high.
Yes. And you feel like you're on top of the world. Actually. Yes. But now I have to ask you, because I took a bus up from the base to this area. And let me explain. This area is now, of course, not lived in. It's a national shrine, maybe? No? Well, it's a national reserve. And so it's just the remnants of what used to be. So you see some paths up there, some open fields. And so anyway, the Indians, the inhabitants, have long since departed, gone. And there's probably a whole story about that. But it was just a memorable experience. I know. Now, did you take you can hike from the lower city, or you could take the bus. So did you hike from the lower city?
I did. So I hiked from the Inca Trail. So the oldest trail is called the Inca Trail. We started at kilometer 82, and that's the trailhead within that area. And it took 4 days. So the total of trekking miles, it was 26 miles or 24 miles altogether. The highest altitude we reached on the second day, it was 14,000 feet. Wow. It was the very top, and they called it the Dead Woman's Pass. Back in the old day, they called it the Dead Woman's Pass because a lot of people, by the time that they reached the second highest point, they were exhausted. Like, we're talking about the indigenous people when they used to do that, and the area was previously invaded by the Spanish. So when they first invaded the Peru, they wanted to find these different tribes and conquer them throughout the whole Machu Picchu. And the indigenous from Peru, they discovered that there's so many different paths that you can go on, and that would make the tribe really hidden. So there's still a lot of remnants of what the old ancient Peru looks like in these deep inside mountains that no one ever discovered. Yeah, I believe they're talking about, like, there's still a lot of different sites that you can go to and accidentally run into because no one had ever found them before. So I hiked the Inca Trail. I didn't take the bus. We did take the bus afterwards to come down, but I spent 4 days, day in, day out. We camped outside, and every day I would have to wake up 5 o'clock in the morning because I walk really slow with my 2 crutches. Yes. So every morning I wake up really early in the morning to hike up there. And every hike, every step, it was more like a push-up because my legs are not long enough. My height is only 4 feet 4 inches tall, kind of like an average 9-year-old, 11-year-old. So my legs are really short, and some of those steps are gigantic. So yes, they are. In order for me to get up to the next step, I usually have to put my 2 crutches up. For 1 step forward, get down to my knees and leg and arms, and then start crawling up to the next step, and then pick up my crutch and do that again and again. So I did that pretty much the whole entire trail, going upward. And on the second day, I remember I reached to the highest point. I broke down in tears. It was my last 50 steps. to the highest point of the mountain.
Yeah.
I start broken tears, and it was just really transformational, amazing. I couldn't believe I made it. It was that belief of, I finally got here. Like all this work finally paid off.
Well,
and
it's, it is really a testimonial to your spirit and your drive. One that you wanted a challenge so big. That's really huge, because I can appreciate the path. I have 2 working legs, and I never even entertained the idea of walking up. So it says so much about your inner strength. I'm just amazed, honestly, that you took this on. And what was the big thing that drove you to make this decision?
It was just tired of feeling sorry for myself. And one of the things that you touched earlier was physical difference is something that we see every single day.
Yes.
It's not something I can hide. It's not something that I can just put away. Physical differences is really apparent. You have to deal with it. You have to look at it every single day. It's act as a reminder, hey, you're different. You look different. And that reminder was very, very destructive. And that destruction was, well, you're not good enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not worthy enough. How dare you to think of it, you're possible. And when you spend a lot of time in that moment, you know that it's not a good place to be, and you get tired of it. It's like you're feeling tired for being tired already.
Yeah. So how did you deal with the fear that you couldn't do it? You weren't big enough. You weren't strong enough. How did you deal with that? Because when I'm talking to a woman that's physically there, physically in shape, size and all, she has tremendous fears of I'm not enough as well. Mm-hmm. So how did you deal with your fear? Because that's where the lady all of us need to face our fears. Mm-hmm.
There's a very Taoism saying or way of dealing with it is you fight the fight by not fighting. And I think when it comes to fear, right, we all have that belief that fear is not welcome. Fear is something very bad. Fear is something that I need to get rid of and eliminate fear.
Right. And
when you have that belief, you start to doing a lot more. You're trying to work your way through and pushing yourself so hard, but not knowing that, by fighting and resisting, you're not going anywhere. But instead, what works really well for me is to allow it, to accept it. Fear has the same purpose as happiness. Why do we feel happy? Because it was part of our emotion. It's natural part of what we're feeling in times of danger, in times of uncertainty. So fight without the fight.
So so tell me how you do that. Does that mean when you fight without the fight, do you change it with a question like, what is this fear about? Or what are you trying to tell me? Or how can we confront that fear that sometimes almost paralyzes us? So how do you address that? What is it?
A lot of it has to do with self-compassion and knowing that and recognizing self-acceptance. It's really about accepting yourself, right?
Yeah.
So we're not perfect. And it is, what really works is by accepting the fact that we are not perfect, and no one is. We don't see them being imperfect, but they are imperfect. No one is perfect. I know.
Oh, darn. I really thought I was.
No one is perfect. We can all name a few for ourselves why we are not perfect, right?
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yes.
So there is no perfection. And by accepting that there's always a little bit of flaws, a little bit of imperfection within ourselves, including how we look, the way that we eat, the way that we talk, the way that we dress, there's something about us that we don't like. Knowing that and accepting it and recognizing it allows you to start looking at what is possible. What can you do with this imperfection? What can you do while in this trap in this body? Can I work with my hands? Yes, I'm very creative. I can definitely make some art with my hands if I can walk. I cannot run. Well, can I walk? Sure, I can walk. I can do some exercise that doesn't require a lot of movement. Can I do something as learning a new language? Sure. If I don't know something, I can start learning. So instead of focusing on what we cannot do, start by acceptance and self-acceptance, allow us to see what is possible and what is it that we can do for ourselves. So it's a shifting your perspective directly by just realizing that the coin has two sides. You can keep focusing on the problem side, or you can start flipping it over and look at the solution side.
Yeah. I was thinking as you were speaking that, have you ever heard of the ropes course?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I attended a workshop and did the ropes course, which meant you climb up poles, you do all sorts of things. And at the time, I was over 50 and I was totally surprised I could do some of these things physically. Mm-hmm. And I can sorta connect with you in that powerful feeling that you have when you face a fear. And doing that ropes course was all about fear, but it was to show us that we can do far more than we think we can do by facing our fear. So I was thinking, what a powerful statement that you displayed when you walked up to Machu Picchu, and it fed others, but it also fed you the most because it said there are no limitations here. I can do this. It may take me longer, but I can do this. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, the only limitation that we have in our life is the limitation that we put on ourselves. So
yes.
Whatever that you believe that you cannot do, guess what? Yeah. You will not be able to do it ever. But if you turn it around and think about turning all these limitations as, they're really a great pointers for you to start to become curious about who you are, to be curious about what you can do, to be curious about why are you feeling the way that you feel. You start gaining that inner power, that inner strength, that resilience that's already available in us. And I think
love that.
People need to realize that you have that inner power, you have that inner strength that's already there available for you, but you're not seeing it because you're so being distracted by everything that's not working out for you.
Yes. Well, I hate for this to come to a close, but there are some things that I want to share with the audience that you have made available. For instance, you have a giveaway that you'd like to offer us. I want to encourage people to go to your website, which is http://elevatelifecoaching.org, where you can go and see all of the really amazing things that Michelle has to offer on her website. And on that website, you may see what she's going to give us as a gift today. And would you like to talk toward that?
Yeah. So I have a free offer, and when people go to my website, you can download a free copy of the judgment workbook. So we carry a lot of that self-judgment, that judgy. I call that judgment the judgy juggerson. We all have that judgy juggerson going around inside of us all the time. So the workbook will help you to uncover what are some of the judgy juggerson that you've been carrying in your life, and how do you work around and identifying those judgy juggerson, and how can you come up with a different way of, going through and working through with that judgy juggerson. Yeah. So that's available on the website. And along with that, you also get a 15 minutes of guided meditation to practice loving kindness meditation.
Oh, I love that. I'll be on that one. I'll be there. So what is it that you most enjoy doing? I mean, you have so many, you're a professional doctor in with the hospital there in pharmaceutical. Well, I'm not saying this right, but clinical
clinical pharmacist.
Thank you for coming to my aid there. But you have so many facets to you. I am amazed that you have time to do the passion work, which is, of course, your coaching. And how do people, if they have questions about your coaching, get to you?
One of my biggest values is connection. So I love connecting with people. I love conversation. So if listeners could just go to my website, they can have a conversation with me, 15 minutes conversation, and you can learn more about the way that I coach, and I can learn more about your story, what you're going through. And at the end of the conversation, even if people don't hire me, I still like that relationship that I'm able to build, and I love to talk. So one thing I love is I love to talk. I can talk all day. So I love those connection calls. So that's how people can find me.
So they go to your website and they sign up for.
Yeah, they just click on the button. Just click on a button, and it's a consultation call. So basically it's a discovery call. You get to discover about me, and I get to discover about you.
Yeah, and it's free.
It's completely free. No.
Yes.
How can I possibly charge someone for a conversation like that?
But you know what, Meredith? There are some people that do charge for that. Michelle, I changed your name. Michelle, there are people that charge for those.
But connection is my value. So, money is also a value, which no judgment here, right? We all have different values.
Not from us.
Yeah.
So if you were to share something that you really want my audience to know, what would that be?
I would want people to start believing that there is a hero inside of them. There's a hero inside of you right now, and that's waiting for you to discover it. That's waiting for you to bring it out into the world. And again, all of us have a purpose in this life, on this planet. And that hero is going to do so much that what you can possibly believe right now. And you need to find that hero inside of you. And the hero is, there's no one else coming to save us. Only you can save yourself.
Oh, like that. And no matter if we have not been, we all have challenges. Some are more intense than others. You certainly have had intensive challenges, but we all have challenges of some magnitude in our life. And how does a woman that just thinks, oh, my life is just going okay, it's going easy, how do they find that hero?
So for those who feel that they already have it all, and occasionally there's some, ups and downs, that hero is here to serve the purpose. So ask yourself why. Why are you doing the things that you do, and what are you passionate about? What makes you wake up in the morning and feeling that you are forgetting the time and space? You're just dying to get out there and to serve, to do whatever that you were meant to do. That's how you find your passion. That's how you find your hero. Even though you may not have some major issues or challenges that you are experiencing, but there's something about you that makes you believe, that makes you different, that makes you unique, that makes you special, and that is your hero.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, sounds like you've got an audience behind you.
I do. My pipe just broke, and I really apologize for this.
Your what?
I apologize for this. My pipe, the shower head kind of was leaking.
Oh, so those are your people that have come to fix it.
Yes.
I was like going, what is going on here?
This is the benefit of working from home. And this is the part where we start having that negative self-talk because it seemed perfect.
Yes, it did, didn't it? Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm going to say that I thank you very much for being on today. It has been a wonderful hour for us, and it's gone by so fast. I'm thrilled that you're in my community. that you've come on and shared really so many powerful ideas that we all have, that we all share. And so I cannot say enough how much I've enjoyed our time together. So I really wish you the best, my dear.
Thank you so much, Joyce.
Yes. So for you people listening out there, I'd like for you this week to think about what it is your biggest fear, or what is your biggest challenge? And maybe start thinking about why that challenge is with you. What does it bring for you? How can it change your life, and how can it enrich your life? I know these are some questions that you may have been sitting with, but never ask. You were maybe interpreting them more about why me, instead of asking, what do I have to learn from this? Certainly Michelle had her challenges. I've had my challenges, as most of us do in life. Nobody gets a free ride. So anyway, this is your thought for this week. When you run up against something that's really frustrating and you feel like you're a victim and not a winner, I ask you to change them and bring out the questions. What am I to learn from this? Why is this here? What is my gift? These are the things you need to think of going forward. So I thank you for being here. A little food for thought. Go to Michelle's website, elevatelifecoaching.org, and either sign up for a session or take advantage of her free offering. Thank you for being here. Have a great week.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.